Welcome to the Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon.
I'm Tania.
I'm Stuart.
And I'm Pam.
We're all property people running our own businesses. This podcast is just us chatting, as we often do, about anything and everything property. And this episode is continuing the conversation from last week. If you haven't listened to that episode 64, you probably want to do that now. It will mean that the chat this week does make an awful lot more sense. We're about to rejoin the conversation with Pam and Tania, having just been talking about how they help and manage their angel investors. So let's jump straight back to our chat, starting with a question from Stuart.
There's one burning question that I can hear people with their earphones in their earbuds. The question they've got is, where are you getting these angels from?
You know, it started off that we used to get angels from our course that we were doing, because a lot of them they were time poor, but they had money. But nowadays we sort of spread the word, and nowadays, well, unfortunately, we both got friends who have got divorced, and then they've got a lump of money they don't know what to do with, or people are inheriting money, and they come to us and they say, well, you know, what can I do with this money? So it's really it started off being property people, and now it's being non-property people that and it's just by talking to people and telling them what you're doing. And you know, non-property people are generally our angels are our friends, so they know us and they trust us because they know us. They've come to our house, you know, that sort of thing. So that's basically where we're getting our angels from at the moment. We've also got a Facebook group called Pam and Tania's Deal Diaries, and we blog every day about what we do with regard to property. And Tania, how many people do we have on that group?
Oh, is it about 250, something like that? Is it that many? 300?
So we've got a whole lot of people on, about that many on the group. And so when we have a deal, you know, they watch us doing all the analysis. I can discuss more about analysis just now if you want. But you know, we blog about that, so they see, oh, the area we are analysing, how we're going about finding the deals, etc. By the time we come to a deal, they know that we've done our homework. So and then we do put it on our Pam and Tania's Deal Diaries, saying, you know, if we're going to start looking for investors, and then people approach us like that as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it's having a tribe.
Yeah, I mean, we it was such a mental block for me, especially about finding investors. Real mental block. In fact, I was shivering and shaking the first time we kind of started. In fact, I think I burst into tears. So I get it. I mean, I really get it, don't I, Pam? I really get it. It's a hurdle, a mental hurdle mostly, though. We also have this mantra which we learnt from one of our trainers, which was, if a deal's a deal, the money will come. So we put faith in that. We also, so we're very, very low key. We're not bling at all. We have had investors give us £20,000-30,000 over a fish supper, which they paid for us for. We'll sit in a hotel foyer and then just have a little chat over things, go through, you know, the prospectus, which we've put together on an online facility, and then print off. I think that a lot of our investors like us as people and as the combination as well. So, you know, Pam will resonate very well with the analysis type people, and I resonate very well with the product, what it's going to look like, who are the tenants going to be, that kind of thing. So I think as we've said, we're very yin and yang. I think we resonate quite well with people, and we don't want to, and we're not trying to go, you know, we're not trying to be bling in any way. We're just saying that this is property, this is it, and we talk about the nuts and bolts of property and the ups and downs and the nightmares and the joys a lot on our blog as well.
So just being yourselves and building trust is simple stuff. And the final comment from me on that is I just love that conversation when you came home and told each of your partners, yeah, I've just been out for dinner. We got 20 grand over a fish supper with other people. Yeah. You must start to wonder what profession you were moving into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And actually, we get asked this question a lot, is about how do you find investors? And what I always say is basically, put together an investor pack which is just all about the deal and also about yourselves, a lot about yourself. And then give it to your friends, and not to ask for investment or anything, but just to say to them, please, can you just read this and see if it makes sense and see if there are any errors in it.
Mm.
And if you hand that out to a few friends, very often those friends will come back and tell you what doesn't make sense. But they'll also say, oh, actually, I'm interested in investing. And when we started, our lowest investment amount, I think, was maybe most of them gave 5,000. One lady invested £1,000, but we did that to her just to help her along her journey. But most people invested. Well, our minimum was £5,000, and that's not going to sort of wipe someone out if you lose that money. So a lot of people who are potential investors are prepared to risk 5,000 just to see that it's going to work, and then once it all goes okay, then the next project they'll invest more and more and more. And yeah, so that's what.
We like to help other investors along as well. So one of the other big hurdles, which is a financial one as well, emotionally, is getting going. So, we do this thing called Earn Whilst You Learn, which a lot of people are doing now, but we were amongst the first in the group that people we know, and we would just say, come along for the journey. We'd walk them through our patch, where we were buying. We would bring them through the whole purchase process, the ups and downs of that would be mostly through our blogging. But then when we actually start doing, we invite people along for a day trip to a shell of a property, for example, on a freezing cold winter's day, and then we give them, packets of sandwiches and stuff. You know what I mean? It's always very low key and very kind of real, but they get to see it, and we've seen so many starter investors get going from being an investor with us, putting their money into one of our deals, seeing the process, and then thinking, oh yeah, we can do that. So we're very much about encouraging people to just get going, and having little bits of money involved in a deal means you get to see a lot of what goes on. And then there's other people who aren't interested at all. That's fine, but the ones who are, we offer them that extra little bit of time to just get involved.
Yeah, and they would come along when we were sort of like when we had the bill of works and we were meeting on site with a builder, and then they would come along and follow us and just see how we were sort of talking to the builder and just discussing, because they had never done that sort of thing before, and that was really good for them as well, actually.
Because we remember how scared we were even talking to the estate agent in the first place. And everything, I think we've been scared at every point, really, haven't we, Pams? But we've managed to jolly each other along. But we recognise that there's all these, I'm talking about emotional hurdles because, my husband's a psychotherapist. So, I recognise you just have to sometimes push through even the slightest thing, picking up the phone and talking to somebody, not wanting to look like an idiot or say something wrong can sometimes just stop you from even picking up the phone. So we kind of jolly people along on that kind of stuff because we've had to do it jolly ourselves along on it.
Last week, Stuart and I spent a while talking about our approach to taking funding. And one of the things I mentioned in that was that I would be too reticent to take on the responsibility of holding somebody else's money. Is that something that you guys ever came up against? And if so, how did you get over it? Or were you just happy to take people's money however they want?
To me, we are not taking their money. We are offering them an opportunity to invest. So to me, we are helping them. And in fact, our largest investor, we pay her something like about, I don't know, more than £400 a month. And honestly, she would not manage without that money. So she is very, very, very grateful. But the reason why I don't mind taking on other people's money, as you say, is because I know the deal works. And as well, because we are in the situation where we are at the moment, I know that if somebody wanted their money back, I would manage to find it for them.
Mm.
Even if we had to put it on a credit card or something. But I know the deal works and I know it's all sort of okay. So no, don't have sleepless nights about helping other people and giving them an income. No, I feel the opposite. I feel like grateful that they're helping us and we're helping them. No, absolutely, that's how I feel.
I think that's a very, very good approach to it. I worry about the responsibility of looking after someone's money. But yeah, as you say, when you know you're in a situation where the deal works and you have exits potentially if you need to, then yes, you're providing a service. As you say, you're actually helping people.
I mean, I know that my money mind has changed a lot, and I was very, very reticent. That was part of my shivering and shaking the first time. But I also know I heavily rely on Pam for the confidence as far as that's concerned. And I also think that we are incredibly, we don't like taking risks. So our deals, so we haven't, in 7 years we've got 7 properties, and yes, we were, our time was divided, with various other things that we were doing in our lives. So, we could blame that. But I also think that we only want to get people involved in deals that we think are really going to work, where the demand at the time of purchase is very good, where we know the property, when we've done the work, will go up by a certain value, where we feel incredibly confident, and that we would, if we had the kind of money that we need for the deal, that we would put our money into it. And because ultimately we are going to take on the responsibility of the mortgage and paying these people back. So part of it is self-preservation, but part of it is we don't ever want to sour a relationship with any investor. And when things don't happen, the timing maybe goes off a little bit or something like that, because we've got such good relationships and they know that we are true to our word, people will give us a little bit of expansion of time, or we can have conversations with everyone because they've been on a journey with us. We've built a really good relationship with everybody. So the trust element is really there, but it also then, for us, unless the deal is really a deal, then we're not prepared to take on the responsibility for ourselves, but also for someone else. So whereas there are some and even that goes down to even the percentage rate we're offering. So if the deal, we would offer more if we thought that it wasn't going to risk the deal, put more risk on the deal. So we know a lot of people who will offer a lot more money, a lot more of a percentage, so 12% on money put in, or for example. But we won't do that because we think that stretches the deal, puts too much pressure on the deal, and adds risk to it. And I mean, if a deal could take that, then we would probably offer more, because there'd be more in it for us as well. But we really are worried about the kind of percentages some people do offer on deals, which are just similar to ours. And we're sitting there thinking, God, they're really stretching themselves there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just say something? I've got 4 kids, and they've gone through university. So or some are still at university. So the student loan will pay for the maintenance loan. It either pays for their accommodation or it pays for their living expenses, but it's not enough for both. So what I do is I invest money in other people's deals, and that interest pays for my children's university accommodation. And I feel so great that I have helped these other people by investing in their deals, and they have funded my children's university accommodation. So it hasn't been earned income, it's been invested income that's paying that off. And for me, that's also a win-win situation from the other point of view, from the investor point of view, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite happy to do that.
Yeah, we like to know why people are investing with us, what they're going to do with the money as well. So do you remember a friend of mine as well? She wanted an art studio, and so she invested some money that she'd inherited from when her father passed away, and she, in order to pay for her studio space, she invested with us for a year and a half, 2 years, and it paid for the studio space. So people they're earmarking this extra bit of money for things, and it's lovely to know that. For us, that's kind of floats our boat, doesn't it, Pam?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it does. Very much so.
I would be interested to try and circle back to location again, because you got as far in the story as choosing or knowing that a suburb of Nottingham is where you were wanting to go. But we kind of got distracted at that point. And I'd be interested to know how you narrowed it down from there, because that's still an enormous number of potential options and areas to invest in. And yeah, how do you then narrow it down to one house?
So generally what we do, okay, we try and find an up and coming area. So what I do is I go on Google Advanced Search, if you and then I put in the newspaper name. So I look up the local newspaper of the area. So say it's Nottingham Times or something. I don't know what it's called. And then you can put in an exact phrase, which is like jobs. And then you use that Google Advanced Search to search. And then you make sure you look what comes up, and you see if it's an up and coming area. You know, if it says, Aldi or Lidl are making new shops in that area, then you know it's up and coming. You look and see phrases like, oh, 10 million pounds has been pledged for that area. And those are the sort of phrases you're looking for. And just to see that these big employers are about to make jobs there. At the moment, when you look at a lot of places, it says how all the jobs are being cut. But that's what I do. That's one of the things I do, is look on Google Advanced Search and see that.
And one of the other things about this particular area is that it's earmarked for HS2 to go through as well, isn't it, Pam?
Mm.
And there's a hub that's being built nearby. So it's all those kind of development potentials where an influx of people are going to be brought at some point, even if it's not then. At some point it will be brought.
Yeah. And then totally what we do is we phone a few lettings agents. So basically you want one if you've got a town, you want one in the north, one in the south, one in the west, and one in the east. And you phone them, if whatever your strategy is, say it's HMOs. So you ask them how many properties they manage, where they think are good and bad areas. And those lettings agents are just worth their weight in gold, because when you find a property, then you go to them, if you find it on Rightmove, and you say, what do you think of the property in this road? How much would the rooms rent out for? And they know exactly, because they kind of think, well, you're going to give them your business. And so they really will tell you exactly what's what. Another thing I do is I go on Rightmove, and I just sort of mark this city center of an area. And then I search on the map of Google Maps for houses for sale, only 3 bedrooms within a 3-mile radius. So you get loads and loads of houses, but then you put the maximum price at lower and lower and lower until you have got quite a low price. So say it's 100,000, and those very, very low priced houses are probably not the most desirable areas. And that's how I figure out which are better areas and worst areas. So I don't want to invest in those sort of areas. It's not perfect, but it just gives you an idea. If you just come to a new area and you just have no idea where to start, that's the sort of thing we do. So phone lettings agents, do our own research by looking, where are not so nice areas. And of course, I'd also print out a map and mark where's the hospital and the university and all the big employers. And if there's an Article 4 area, I mark that on the map as well, just so I've got it all in front of me. And you just whittle it down and down and down. But yeah, and we basically ask the lettings agents, and that's how we go about it.
And then there's the shoe leather bit where we have to go and see things. So when we were first thinking, we abandoned but started a massive search to go to all sorts of different areas, anything that was in the right kind of ballpark on the price and that kind of stuff, or something that was big that could be changed and converted. And we went to lots of areas around Nottingham, and just to see, because postcodes can kind of sometimes cover quite an area, can't they? Quite a big swathe round a city or something. So, and then you just kind of whittle it down until, and Long Eaton, near the supermarket, near the train station, near the, what do people want around them? So, for ease of living, if are they going to be car owners? Are they going to be commuting into Nottingham by train? Also where we've invested, we've also near an airport as well. And so we've actually got, because we've got quite good at working with airport workers because of Crawley and Gatwick, that we've actually had some crew and some, ground staff and everything from West Midlands Airport. I'm in the West Midlands. So we look for amenities, and also whether something looks like it's going to be up and coming. So we walked around Long Eaton town centre. Now, if you do that at the moment during COVID, it's quite a desolate place. But it looked at the time, like it was on the turn in a good way. So it looked parts of it were very old fashioned, fuddy duddy kind of shops for the elderly, effectively. But then you'd have these kind of funky tattoo parlours being kind of starting up, or really nice cafes, or in fact the fish and chip supper was done at an award-winning fish and chip shop that had sprung up. There was a very nice zhuzhy looking meat specialist restaurant in the town as well. So it was like those little up and coming bits. So it wasn't quite there, but it's starting to be there. So there's things that are going to potentially add value to the house or the properties as time goes on as well.
Yeah, I think what I just want to underscore for people as well is you mentioned the shoe leather, which I think is incredibly important, certainly in my experience anyway. And of course, a lot of that you can do virtually now with Google Street View and that kind of thing. But that came into really sharp focus for me once when I was researching some properties, and I found a house which just looked really good, but the price was just too good to be true. And fortunately for me, I was visiting the area at that time. And when I walked to the property, if you look at the property, it was a stunning old Victorian property. But what you couldn't see in the photo was that about 10 yards away from it, they'd completely demolished an old cinema, which had just become sort of like a desolate piece of land and there were no plans to do anything with. And if you hadn't known that area, now, of course, you can use letting agents, estate agents, and Google Maps Street View, as I've said, but that shoe leather thing, just for even getting that sense that you've talked about, just knowing the area is incredibly important, isn't it? For knowing and getting a feel for a place.
Yeah, and getting the feel for whether it's going down or going up, and actually so the yin and yang of me and Pam. Sometimes it's the feel of things that I'll pick up, and Pam relies on me to kind of go, so this is a bit. Or it's, look, there's this happening and there's that happening there. Because Pam's incredible at I was silent whilst Pam was talking about a lot of the analysis stuff, wasn't I? Because that isn't my forte. But she'll present that to me, and then then I'll add into it with the, how does somewhere feel? What kind of age are some of these properties? Have they got potential? How have they got potential to split? So there's always this kind of overlapping and discussion and, feeding in to the whole decision making about what we're going to buy next, really.
And picking up on what Tania says, it is just so great to work with another person, because when you're doing it alone, it's you don't have it all. You've only got one side of it. So I really would recommend always to try and work with somebody else, because yeah, it just has huge benefits and things that you just cannot see yourself. So yeah, it very much works well for us like that.
And especially somebody who's got very, very different skills. Because I did attempt to work with somebody who fundamentally we had too many of our skills were the same, and it didn't work. But also I think our value structure was very different. And I think for Pam and I, for being such different people, you'd think it wouldn't necessarily work. But because we've got such similar values, that's actually, and as soon as because I've been trying to work with someone else for over a year, as soon as Pam and I started working together, and you were the same as well, weren't you, Pam? You were trying to work with your husband effectively, but the two of you are actually similar in a lot of ways, and as soon as we started, the yin and the yang started working, we were buying our first property in a few months.
Speaking of just a few months, I'm curious how much, not how many hours you put into it, but what was the duration of this research and narrowing down to Nottingham and then narrowing down to a suburb and then a specific place and just a smaller area that you then chose to buy in? How long did all of that take?
For me, it's constant. It's what I do every single day. I am always listening out for people saying, "Oh, my boyfriend lives in this place," and then I'll go and do a little bit of research. It's just for me like breathing. It's a constant way of life. So I can't tell you how long that took to get that, but I don't know. But we actually heard about that Amazon warehouse that they were building, and Tanya, we did a few trips up there, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, we dragged Nick and Phil up there as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
So it's having extra eyes and actually making it fun, kind of making it into we hired an Airbnb and cooked dinner for everybody, and we made it into a kind of and they're property people. If we dragged our husbands up, they would. So Nick and Phil are our property husbands, and our real husbands would not be interested in this one in any way, shape, or form. So that kind of the process, we try and make it as fun as possible because it gets fraught. For us, the worst bit is the end of a refurb, isn't it, Pam? It gets really fraught then. And if we're going to have an argument, it's going to be then. But most of the time, we jolly along really, really well. And it's so the type. I don't know. I mean, at the moment we're looking at areas, aren't we? So we've still got Long Eaton as a potential, but when we see something where there's going to be something big is going to happen somewhere, so where a big chunk of government money or funding is going to go in somewhere, we start looking at that, and especially if it's near. So at the moment we're definitely looking at the Midlands. The Midlands is what we're looking for. We're on pause last year. Pam was buying a property actually with getting another one of our friends on board with buying their first property, and that's in Long Eaton. So you've been buying that. I was moving house and there was COVID and all sorts of things. So this year we're waiting for the world to wake up to the fact that nobody actually has any money, or they're about to be made redundant and things like that. So we know that, that sounds horrible because there's going to be a lot of pain. But we know when there's a lot of pain that's actually a very good kind of time to help people who need to sell to somebody, and we want to be the people they sell to. So we're revving ourselves up for areas at the moment, aren't we? Really, I'm looking very local to where I live. I've moved to, but equally I'm very local to all sorts of places like Birmingham, like Wolverhampton. Liverpool's an hour away from me now. So the shoe leather bit, we might be able to do more virtual. Me going there, our system might change. So Pam being 3 hours away or 2.5 hours away, but me just being an hour away from a lot of these places. We're so kind of au fait with the virtual technology now. A lot of that can be done together, but not necessarily physically together, especially when COVID's still going to be floating around a bit.
And what's your maximum? What's your sort of what sort of time or distance wouldn't you go past, or isn't there one?
What do you reckon, Pam? 2 to 3 hours, I think, is probably our max.
2 or 3 hours. But if we found a brilliant deal somewhere else, we'd go for it. But Stuart, I agree with you that nothing can beat actually walking the streets. But I will only go to a place once I've analysed it, so I know that my time walking the streets is not going to be wasted. That I know
Absolutely.
that deals work there, in that area, or potentially do. So
yeah.
But we are like Tanya will just say all these places like Wolverhampton, Birmingham, and then I'll go and do all the analysis about it.
I'll find properties with potential. That's that. My thing is God, that looks like there should be money in it. There's that have we got? Oh, and it's going to be close to X, Y, and Z. But then Pam will really burrow down
Yeah.
into the details. One of the hardest things at the moment, I think, is analysing demand. Demand is just, I just think it's one of the things that really holds us back at the moment, isn't it? It's very, with Crawley, demand was absolutely obvious, but because now over the period of 7 years, there's a lot more HMOs everywhere, and councils are really kind of tightening things up a lot more. Once you add in over demand, or under demand for the amount of properties that are already available, the fact that HMOs have exploded all over the place, it's that's a strategy that is getting harder and harder to actually make work on paper. And if it's not working on paper, you can find, in the best will in the world, everyone can find a nice big house to split up and put more people in. But if the demand's not there, then there's no point doing it. And as we know, demand fluctuates and things, so this might change around again. But at the moment, especially in Crawley, there's definitely under demand for the amount of properties that are there that are HMOs. So our strategy is changing a bit as far as what we want to buy, and we actually really want to. I've got to go. My specification from Pam is to go and find us a block of flats or property that will split into flats where the demand is right, and the remortgage once we put the work into it, that it's going to be correct as well. So that's what we're doing at the moment, isn't it, Pam? We're kind of looking at areas, but also looking at a different strategy, not HMO.
Yeah, because I think HMO is sort of had its time, and while there are still a few opportunities for us, we've been there, done that. We'd prefer to move on to something else now.
Interesting you mentioned blocks of flats. That's something that interests me as well. And I was recently looking at a block of flats that's up for auction in Red Hill, actually. But it looks like it would be a challenge. So
yeah, but also another thing that I was listening to a webinar the other day, and they were saying, because how normally you try and buy as close to public transport as possible, and they were saying people are looking up to 40 miles away from a train station. And that is really quite a game changer, because especially if you're working remotely, it kind of, as long as you've got good internet, it doesn't matter. And I thought, gosh, I would never entertain even looking that far away. So it was interesting to see other people's ideas now, is that they are looking so far away.
Yeah, I mean, one of my criteria is within a mile or two of a train station. I mean, not necessarily a major one, but still a train station. So yeah, that's a long way off.
Yeah, I mean, 40 miles, if it's 40 miles away from a train station, then from my experience, having just moved rural, I know so for example, there's a lovely town 25 miles away from me, but that I know is going to take me an hour and 10 minutes to get to when you're rural. Whereas where we used to live, to get to Brighton is 50 miles, and that would take an hour. So if they're that far away, I mean, I think people aren't necessarily thinking straight at the moment.
No, I think some of these developments might not necessarily be long term, but I think the point that's been raised for me is that you have to know your market, because a lot of us in the property world focus on the property, we focus on the deal, we focus on the investment, and we forget that we have customers at the end of it, which we call tenants. And so, for example, I'm just finishing a property now where it's on a bus route, and typically the customers, the tenants for this property will be nurses, doctors within a vicinity where they know they're on a bus link. So that might be important. For others that might be more professional based, they might only go into the office now one in 5 days. That might change. So yeah, infrastructure might not be as important as it once was, but that's why I think it's even more important to do your research about who is this property going to be for, who do I want to serve, and then you can determine whether or not you need to be on top of a train station or otherwise.
Yeah. And also, who is it going to serve, not just now, but for exit strategies and other strategies? How could it serve people in other types of strategies that aren't necessarily great now? What could it be in the future? And I think that's one of the key things that we also learned from our training, wasn't it, Pam? Because we go through this whole, so this is your property. So today it's going to be an HMO, but what if HMOs stop being the thing? Okay, it could be a nursing home. Okay, it could be a charity safe house. Okay, it could be, what you could think of all sorts of things. Okay, you're buying something that's semi-commercial now. What could it be in the future? And so it's knowing that there's lots of other options available, but which option are you going to go down for the moment, and what could it morph into? So and actually having the skills to morph as well, especially this last year has been such an interesting process for Pam and I, with a forced change of tenant type. Forced on them. They, a lot of our tenants are still the same tenants that we took on, pre-COVID, but their type has changed because they were professional and now they're on universal credit. And being able to, we've learnt, we don't know much about universal credit, but we now know where to send them so as they can get hold of somebody to help them through the process. But also being very circumspect as well. The way Pam manages the income from properties has absolutely saved our bacon this year. It was learnt through our training, but it's been managed and instigated by Pam, and we haven't, for example, had to take on we haven't had any mortgage holidays. I mean, we've got a lot of tenants in debt to us for rents that they haven't been able to pay, but also she's been amazing at kind of like funding us through some of these kind of things, and together we've managed the tenants, and tried, if a communication has broken down on one side, it's been picked up on the other side, or together we've kind of managed all the we talk about Crawley, that there's been a bit of a psychosis going on in Crawley. We've just had, we never ever had any kind of dealings with the police, for example, and suddenly we've been, each of our houses except for one, I think, has had the police being called in. We've had all sorts of horrible things going on with tenants, people, losing their parents, we've had some COVID scares within the house, so we've also had to do this kind of a lot of health and safety management. So, and if we had to do that together, if we hadn't had been together, even albeit via Zoom and stuff, even when we were only 20 minutes away from each other, our working practice changed completely as well. I suppose there's two learnings there. One is working with somebody you really trust is fabulous, and also working with somebody whose skill set and if the two of you have got the same kind of mindset as far as, we don't want to let anybody down, we won't let anybody down.
So Tanya, I think with you, I think we've learned a lot of different practices, and like you, I've now learned a lot more about universal credit than I ever thought I was going to need. And it's obviously unfortunate to hear the stories that you've talked about as well, because that's not something we want to get involved with when we take on property. But it's important for people to know that these are the things that will likely come to your door if you are managing properties. And I know we're running short on time on this episode as well, but the only other thing I wanted to talk about, just respond to, because it was quite important, was you talked about circumventing mortgage payment holidays, and that was something I was adamant about as well, despite what the headline news was from banks saying it wouldn't impact your credit and X, Y, and Z. Not that I have a distrust in banks, but I was quite adamant about that I wouldn't, my business wouldn't take the holidays, and we would do what we could. And like you, I did have tenants not paying rent.
Yeah.
But just as a call out for people listening to this, because what happened was, and we have an episode on this, but I did have a bounce back loan during that period of time, and looked at a new mortgage with a company, and I think I might have mentioned the company at the time. I can't remember it now, but they did actually respond and said because I'd had a bounce back loan that they wouldn't consider me for the mortgage. So that led me to believe that our assertion was absolutely right, that if we'd taken mortgage payment holidays, given our model of remortgaging and refinancing, that could have left us in a whole heap of hot water. So yeah. It's an important one to call out.
Absolutely. And I had similar, because I was buying a house as well, and they questioned the bounce back as well. They did give us the mortgage. We were only asking for a very small mortgage on my personal home. But yeah, they've definitely asked questions, and even on my business bank account, they've asked questions about, how I'm funding things now I'm here. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we felt, wasn't it, Pam? That the mortgage holidays were not going to be free.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're going to try and draw this to a close on a not quite so happy note.
Yeah, but we get through them.
But we are quite out of time. Go on, do you have something happy to finish with?
Yeah, we've survived. We've survived a very, very difficult year. We're still paying ourselves. We're still getting an income, aren't we, Pam?
Yeah.
And we've had lots of bumps in the road, but now as the bumps surface, we just pull together and don't panic quite so much.
And you are looking forward to finding new investments and new locations and things. So there's lots of positivity in your actual actions as well.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a straight road, it's got bumps along the way, and we just persevere, and persistence pays off. So yeah, absolutely.
We will include any links you want us to and things in the show notes, so people should have a look there if they want to find out more about you and some of the things that you do. But is there anything in particular you'd like to shout out while we're recording, to point people to, or how they might find you or get in contact with you if you want people to do such things?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a monthly property meet, which is now open to the whole world, because it used to be, it's still called Crawley Property Meet, but actually everything we talk about is not purely about Crawley, it's property in general. So, and that's all gone online since kind of March, April last year. And the next one is the 16th of February, and we've got Susanna Cole coming to talk at that. And we've also got the 16th of March, where we've got Amy Rollinson, who is coming to talk. We're planning an eviction specialist to come and talk to us as well, probably in April or May. So yeah, so it's all things property, and we also have, when we're all together, when we're online, we're having a laugh, but when we're all together in the room, we really have a laugh. So we just can't wait to be able to have it live again. And Pam, do you want to talk about Pam and Tania's Deal Diaries?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group called Pam and Tania's Deal Diaries, and if you're interested in joining it, just look it up, Pam ampersand Tania, Tania, Tania's Deal Diaries. And
we'll include links in the show notes so people can look there as well.
Okay, and if you request to join, then we'll add you. And it's just got a true to life report of what we do all day, every day, just to say that, just so people can see that a property investor's life is not just lying on a beach, drinking martinis at all. Yeah, it's the reality of it. So yeah, people can see it all. Yeah.
And we started it because people were beginning to feel that they were failing because they weren't floating around and doing, property stuff was quite, they were finding it hard, and they were thinking they must be doing something wrong. And we're kind of here to just be the reality check and of what it really is like. So you're not doing it wrong if you're having bumps in the road. It's perfectly normal. Bumps are there for a reason.
I shall add that I am a fan of both your Crawley Property Meets and your regular postings to Facebook, although I am now largely off Facebook, so unfortunately I'm missing out on those. So you need to start up some other way of sharing that information, so I can start listening or reading again, I should say.
So what are you on now if you're not going on Facebook? What, LinkedIn or?
No, I'm trying to be non-social networked.
Okay, oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
there's an approach to try and cope with the world these days and lockdowns and changing patterns of time availability and stuff. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
I still read email.
We'll email you our posts then.
You should start up a newsletter. That'd be good.
Yeah, because you've got that much time in your day. If you could just start handwriting letters and posting it out to your subscriber base.
I'll go and find a local goose to give me the quill.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I've got visions of you now running around your local pond trying to get that.
We've got a river that runs
goose
down the hill. There's the River Perry. I'm sure there'll be the occasional wandering goose there.
Very good. Well, just from my side, I just want to say thank you to the both of you for joining us on the last couple of episodes. It's been really good to be able to share your experience and learnings for everyone. So big thank you for that.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Thank you for asking us to join you.
Yeah, brilliant. It's lovely. Yeah, it's been nice. It's nice talking about ourselves.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for sharing so much information on such a wide range of property topics as well. There's an awful lot of brilliant nuggets in there that I think people will enjoy listening to. So yes, thank you again. And as we've reached the end of this recording and some episodes probably, it just remains for me to say thank you very much to everyone who's been listening. Please do leave us a rating or review in your podcatcher of choice if you can, and show notes and links for lots of things we've talked about, and particularly the things that Pam and Tania are doing, can be found at thebusinessofproperty.com. And Stuart and I will talk to you again next week.